Welcome. What you are about to watch is not science fiction, and it is not folklore. It is a serious investigation into one of history's most compelling unresolved questions: the mystery of Easter Island. How did 900 giants walk across the island? Across the world, in universities, research institutes, and field excavations, serious scholars are wrestling with evidence that does not fit the accepted story. Evidence that has been documented, measured, and peer-reviewed, and that still has no satisfying conventional explanation. We are going to look at that evidence carefully, without prejudice in either direction, not dismissing what is extraordinary, but not accepting it without scrutiny either. The truth, as always, is in the details. Easter Island is the most remote permanently inhabited place on Earth, 700 kilometers from the coast of Chile, 2,000 kilometers from the nearest inhabited island. On this tiny, isolated 164 square kilometer rock, a civilization arose that quarried, carved, transported, and erected nearly 900 enormous stone statues called moai, the largest standing 10 meters tall and weighing 82 metric tons. The moai were carved from a volcanic tuff quarry at Rano Raraku, where hundreds of unfinished statues still stand embedded in the hillside, as if work stopped suddenly. They were transported across the island using methods that modern experimental archaeologists have debated for decades. Then the civilization that built them collapsed, rapidly, catastrophically, leaving a desolated island when the first Europeans arrived in 1722. This is where our investigation begins. Stay with us, because the further we go into the evidence, the more extraordinary it becomes. The story you think you know is only the surface. Beneath it lies something far more remarkable. Let us begin. Before we examine the specific evidence, we need to step back and understand the context. This case does not exist in isolation. It sits within the global puzzle of unexplained ancient construction, and to properly evaluate what we are looking at, we need to understand the broader picture that surrounds it. The sky was the original clock, calendar, and map. Before writing, before money, before cities, human beings looked up and organized their lives around what they saw. The position of the sun at solstice told them when to plant and when to harvest. The rising of specific stars marked the seasons. The phases of the moon governed ceremonial calendars in cultures from Ireland to India. Our ancestors were not casual observers of the night sky. They were meticulous, obsessive, and precise in a way that rivals modern astronomical science. This precision is encoded in stone at sites around the world. Newgrange in Ireland is aligned so precisely that sunlight enters its inner chamber only during the 5 days around the winter solstice, and it has done so every year for more than 5,000 years. The pyramids of Giza are oriented to true north with an accuracy of 0.05 degrees. Stonehenge tracks both the midsummer sunrise and the midwinter sunset, as well as the 18-6-year lunar cycle. These alignments are not accidental. They were engineered with mathematical precision by cultures we have long underestimated. What drove this obsession with celestial mechanics? Partly practical. Agriculture depends on knowing the seasons, but partly something more profound. Ancient cultures believed the sky was alive, that the movements of stars and planets determined the fates of kingdoms and harvests. In this worldview, encoding celestial cycles into permanent stone was not merely useful but sacred. The great monuments of the ancient world are, among other things, the most durable clocks ever built. This context matters because it tells us something important. What we are about to investigate is not an isolated curiosity. It is part of a pattern that researchers in multiple fields have been independently documenting for decades. And patterns in science demand explanation. With that foundation in place, let us now turn to the specific case at hand. Now we reach the heart of the matter, the core evidence surrounding Easter Island. How did 900 giants walk across the island? Is more extensive, more verified, and more troubling for conventional explanations than most people realize. Let us walk through it systematically, fact by fact, and allow the evidence to speak for itself. We are not going to speculate here. Every point that follows is documented in peer-reviewed publications, official archaeological records, or government archives that are publicly accessible. The question is not whether these facts are real. The question is what they mean. Consider this first extraordinary detail. The moai were carved from the volcanic tuff of the Rano Raraku quarry using basalt hand picks while still embedded in the quarry hillside, then cut free and transported to platforms, ahu, around the island's perimeter. All moai face inland, watching over the communities they were built for. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen, instruments malfunction, researchers make mistakes. But as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly, it is part of a consistent and documented pattern. But that is only the beginning. Researchers also discovered. A team led by Joanne van Tilburg demonstrated in 2012 that moai could be walked upright by teams using ropes to rock them side to side, consistent with Rapa Nui oral tradition describing the statues as walking. Alternative experiments have demonstrated sledge-based transport on wooden rollers. Now, a skeptic might propose an alternative explanation for this, and that is entirely reasonable. We should always test alternative explanations before accepting extraordinary ones. The problem is that the alternative explanations, when examined carefully, create more problems than they solve. The mystery deepens when we examine pollen cores from Easter Island's lake sediments document a complete transformation. Before Polynesian settlement around 1200 AD, Easter Island was covered in palm forest. By the time Europeans arrived, it was grassland. The palm trees were cleared for agriculture and for transport infrastructure, a deforestation that eventually undermined the island's agricultural productivity. This is where the conventional account begins to strain. Each individual fact might be dismissed or minimized in isolation, but the cumulative weight of the evidence is another matter entirely. Perhaps most remarkable of all, the traditional narrative of collapse, mass deforestation causing famine and warfare, has been challenged by research suggesting European contact, introduced diseases, and the slave raids of the 1860s were more significant factors in the collapse than internal environmental destruction. Researchers who have examined this evidence have described it as genuinely difficult to explain within the accepted framework. These are not fringe commentators, they are credentialed academics publishing in mainstream journals, raising questions that the field has not yet satisfactorily answered. Then there is the matter of moai were not just heads, they have full bodies, typically buried up to the shoulders by sediment accumulation over centuries. This has caused widespread public misunderstanding of their form. Some moai have inscriptions on their backs in the undeciphered Rapa Nui script called Rongorongo. What makes this particularly significant is its independence from the previous points. This is not a case of one theory requiring another. These are separate lines of evidence converging on the same uncomfortable conclusion. Adding to the enigma is this finding. The Rongorongo script, found on 25 surviving wooden tablets, is the only potentially indigenous writing system ever identified in Osea. Despite significant effort, it has not been deciphered. Its relationship to other writing systems remains unknown. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen, instruments malfunction, researchers make mistakes. But as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly. It is part of a consistent and documented pattern. Equally puzzling to investigators, genetic analysis of ancient Easter Island human remains published in 2020 found evidence of contact with Native Americans around 1200 AD, confirming trans-Pacific contact between Polynesians and South Americans and opening questions about what other cultural exchanges this contact involved. Taken together, these facts form a pattern that cannot be explained by coincidence, misidentification, or methodological error. Each piece of evidence has been examined by skeptics. Each has been subjected to alternative explanations, and in each case, the alternative explanation falls short of accounting for everything that has been documented. We are left with a body of evidence that demands explanation and an accepted narrative that does not provide one. This is where serious inquiry begins. Now that we have established the evidence, we need to examine the theories that researchers have proposed to explain Easter Island. How did 900 giants walk across the island? This is where the debate becomes most intense, because the theories reflect not just different interpretations of the same evidence, but fundamentally different assumptions about what is possible and what the past looked like. Understanding these theories is not just an academic exercise. Each one has been championed by serious researchers with genuine credentials, and each one captures something that the others miss. The truth, if it is ever established, will likely draw on elements of several. The first major explanation proposed by researchers holds that Easter Island's moai were built by a highly organized chiefdom society competing between clans for prestige and spiritual power. Each moai represented an ancestor whose mana protected the living community. The societal collapse resulted from a combination of deforestation, introduced European diseases, and the slave raids of the 1860s. This is the current archaeological consensus. This interpretation has significant academic support and is backed by substantial evidence, but it is not without problems. Critics point out that it requires assumptions that go beyond what the evidence strictly supports, and that key predictions of this theory have not been confirmed by subsequent research. It remains contested, and the contest is productive. A rival school of thought argues that the moai transport required large-scale communal labor organization and engineering knowledge about leverage and rope physics, arguing for a society far more intellectually sophisticated than stereotypes of primitive islanders allow. The civilization was not primitive. It was finely adapted to an island environment and catastrophically disrupted by external forces. This theory is controversial, and deliberately so. Its proponents argue that the evidence demands an explanation outside the conventional framework. Critics counter that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that the evidence presented, while suggestive, does not yet meet that standard. The debate continues in peer-reviewed literature. Perhaps the most unconventional theory suggests that Easter Island civilization was in contact with South America, supported by genetic evidence and the presence of the sweet potato throughout Polynesia. Some researchers propose the moai tradition may have been influenced by contact with South American coastal cultures that also built large stone monuments. What is striking about this debate is not merely that experts disagree. That is normal and healthy in science. What is striking is the quality of the disagreement. Serious researchers, working from the same body of evidence, reaching genuinely different conclusions. That level of fundamental disagreement, when it persists over decades, is a signal that something important has not yet been understood. The question is not which of these theories is right. The question is whether any of them is right, or whether the truth is something that none of the current frameworks has yet been able to capture. The case surrounding Easter Island, how did 900 giants walk across the island, does not rest on speculation alone. What distinguishes this investigation from pure mythology is the existence of documented, physical, verifiable evidence, material that has been examined by credentialed researchers and whose authenticity is not seriously disputed. What is disputed is its interpretation. Let us review the most significant documented evidence as objectively as possible. We are not going to cherry-pick the data that supports a preferred conclusion. We are going to lay out what exists and let you draw your own assessment. Physical evidence supporting this account includes pollen core analysis from Easter Island lake sediments documents the complete deforestation of the island's palm forest coinciding with the period of moai construction, providing direct evidence of the environmental impact. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Investigators have documented. Genetic analysis published in 2020 found evidence of contact with Native Americans around 1200 AD, confirming trans-Pacific contact and opening questions about other cultural exchanges. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. On-site analysis revealed. Experimental transport experiments using both the walking method and sledge methods have demonstrated that moai transport was feasible with available technology and labor, removing any need for supernatural explanations. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Each individual piece of evidence might, in principle, be explained away. A single anomalous artifact might be misidentified. A single anomalous date might reflect contamination. A single anomalous eyewitness account might reflect misperception. The question is whether all of the evidence can be explained away, and whether the explanations required are more or less plausible than the evidence itself. When multiple independent lines of inquiry converge on the same conclusion, that convergence is the most powerful signal in empirical science. And that is exactly what we are seeing here. We have examined the history, the evidence, and the theories surrounding Easter Island. How did 900 giants walk across the island? Now we need to ask the question that is sometimes overlooked in discussions of ancient mysteries. Why does this matter? What does it mean for us today? It would be easy to file this away as an interesting historical curiosity, a puzzle from a distant past with no bearing on our present lives. That would be a fundamental mistake. The questions raised by this case touch on issues that are directly relevant to who we are, where we came from, and what the human story actually looks like before the period covered by conventional history. Easter Island today is home to approximately 8,000 people, most of Rapa Nui descent, working to maintain their cultural heritage while managing tourism. The moai continue to erode in the salt air, and the island has recently repatriated several moai from overseas museums. Easter Island's story is a cautionary tale about environmental management, but also a story of human resilience, as the Rapa Nui people survived catastrophe and continue to inhabit the most remote island on Earth. Furthermore, the tools available to investigate these questions are advancing rapidly. Satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, ancient DNA analysis, isotopic tracing, and deep-sea sonar are all providing capabilities that previous generations of researchers could only dream of. Cases that were genuinely unresolvable 10 years ago are now open to new analysis, and the findings, consistently, are expanding rather than contracting the mystery. The investigation continues. New discoveries are being made. New analyses are being published. New voices are entering the conversation from disciplines that were not previously part of the discussion. The answers, when they come, and they will come, will not merely solve a historical puzzle. They will force a fundamental revision of assumptions that underpin our entire understanding of human history and human potential. We have now walked through the complete case of Easter Island. How did 900 giants walk across the island? From the historical record, through the physical evidence, across the competing theories, and into the modern significance of what remains unresolved. What the story of Easter Island ultimately reveals is not just a historical puzzle. It is a mirror. It reflects our assumptions back at us, our assumptions about what ancient people were capable of, about how knowledge is gained and lost across the centuries, and about the relationship between what we know and what we merely think we know. The evidence presented in this documentary is real. The questions it raises are genuine. The debate among researchers is ongoing, and that is healthy. Science is not a set of conclusions. It is a process. And the process requires that we remain open to evidence that challenges what we thought we knew, however uncomfortable that challenge might be. If you came to this documentary as a skeptic, we hope the evidence gave you something to think about. If you came as a true believer, we hope the critical examination gave you a more nuanced picture. The truth, as always, lies in the evidence, not in what we want to be true. Thank you for watching. If this investigation sparked your curiosity, please subscribe to the channel. We publish new documentaries every week, covering the full range of historical mysteries that the mainstream has not yet adequately explained. Leave a comment below telling us which case you want us to investigate next. The conversation continues. The investigation never ends.